Hey there, hi there, hello there, boys and girls. James J. Patterson here, coming to you live from the reading room at Allen Squire Publishing, a small press with big ideas. All right, I was gone last week, and I hope you missed me something terrible. Uh, I'm sure you didn't. But I'm back now, and I've got a pile of big fat books to show you, uh, and I'm only going to read from a couple of them. And and The first one I want to show you right now is this little gem right here. Now, this is called The World: A Brief Introduction, and I picked this up online in the last couple of weeks because it seemed like a great idea, and it is. And it's a survey of the world right now, and I'm going to read a little from the introduction, and I'll tell you more about it than I would. But uh, um, as I've been reading this and really enjoying it, I've been thinking, I have a thing for surveys. It just dawned on me. I went to look at my bookshelf, and I've got all these books that are really kind of an elongated survey of a historical idea. And so I'm going to just run through a few of them for you and see what you think. Um, but, so let me get started with this, and then I'll tell you more. But The World: A Brief Introduction. Now, Richard Haass is or was the president of the Nonpartisan Council on Foreign Relations, and that sounds exciting, doesn't it? And let's hear what he has to say about why he wrote this book. Uh, I just love this. Every book comes with a story that helps to explain why the author committed the time and effort to produce it. In this case, the story starts on a summer's day over a decade ago, fishing with a friend in Nantucket. My friend's nephew joined us on the boat, and I asked him where he went to school. Stanford, he told me. He was a computer science major, soon to begin his senior year. I went on to ask him a number of specific questions about what else he was studying beyond coding. Anything in economics, history, politics? His answers revealed he had taken the minimum number of courses outside his major, and those he did take had little to do with the basics. What was clear was that this intelligent young man would soon graduate from one of the best universities with little or no understanding of his own country or the world, and he would do so at a moment when the fate of his country and the world were inextricably linked, and more was in flux than at any time since World War II and the years after. This troubled me. A search of graduation requirements at most American institutions of higher learning revealed it is possible to graduate from nearly any 2 to 4 year college or university in the United States, be it community college or an Ivy League institution, without gaining even a rudimentary understanding of the world. A recent survey of over 1,100 American colleges and universities found that only 17% require students to take courses in U.S. government or history, while only 3% require them to take coursework in economics. Don't get me wrong, virtually every college or university offers multiple courses in international relations or American foreign policy, many of them well taught and comprehensive in what they cover. But unless a student chooses to major in these subjects, these courses are not required for graduation, and in many cases, not even then for those who do choose a major in a related area. One survey of top American colleges and universities showed less than a third required history majors to take a single course in U.S. history or government. Core courses that all students must take are an endangered species. What most institutions require is that each student take one or more courses in various designated areas, such as natural sciences and social sciences and the arts. In larger institutions, there may be as many as 100 courses to choose from in each area. Thus, it can be possible to fulfill an American history requirement without learning about the American Revolution or the Civil War, or to satisfy a world history requirement without understanding World War II or the Cold War, or more fundamentally, why the world matters and how it operates. Studying a foreign language is valuable, but it is not a substitute. In high schools, the situation is even more pronounced, in that many schools do not even offer basic courses in international relations or global issues. My purpose is not to explain how all this came to be, although I would say high schools have increasingly given short shrift to civics and social studies because of resource limitations and pressures to satisfy mandates related to science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, also known as STEM. Another explanation is the difficulty in reaching agreement on what should be taught. So he's going to take you back to the 30 Years' War in 1618, and he's going to take you right up to World War I, and he's going to take 15 pages to do it. Not bad. Then he's going to take you from World War I through World War II in another 15 pages. The Cold War, we'll get about 25. Post-Cold World and regions of the world. So he tells you, so he's just giving it to you just dry. One reviewer said this book is dry as dust. Now, I used to subscribe to Foreign Affairs, and you don't know dry as dust until you've read some of the essays by diplomats in Foreign Affairs. But this is really good, and you know, it's not dry as dust if you're learning something and if you're interested in the topic. And so this guy's done a great service, and you know people that haven't got a clue. You know, I was reading here and here, and I was going, you know, they say third world, first world, and I said, I've been using those terms all my life. Do I even know what they mean? Well, after World War II, the world was kind of broken up into two spheres of influences. One Soviet Union, one influenced by the United States. And so half the world's countries aligned with one, half with the other. Those that did not align with one or the other are called non-aligned countries. And that's the third world. You learn something every day, huh? Okay, now, looking at that book got me, like I was saying, thinking about my surveys. And I went up to the bookshelves in my office and I pulled a half a dozen of them off the shelves. Here's one. It's called Voltaire's Bastards. John Rosenthal is a philosopher, and he's British and Canadian, something like that. This is a lively book. This isn't dry as dust. It's lively. But this came out in the year 2000. And what he wanted to do is something what Haass is doing with the world. He wanted to say, okay, here's the world in a nutshell as of the first day of the 21st century. Here's its philosophy, politics, art. Here it all is, and here's where it came from, and it's just a Mad Hatter's ride around the globe, and he doesn't make many predictions, but he does say this: in the 21st century, Napoleon and Hitler are both going to make comebacks, and that should scare the shit out of you. Okay, now pretty soon. You know as well as I do that pretty soon we're all going to have to drop everything and save the world. Just like we're learning to drop everything right now and save ourselves from this pandemic. Well, the minute this is over, the minute we get a new administration in here, it's time to drop everything and save the planet. But save the world too. And when I say the planet and the world, I mean the world we live in, or the world we want to live in. Thomas Paine once said about the founding of America that we have the power right now to make the world over again. Now, as far as he was concerned, kings were all warlords, and wicked priests and warlords have been running everything for thousands of years. And with the birth of America, we might have a chance to turn that around. And he was right. And even his words have got turned inside out by Ronald Reagan and all these guys who don't like that idea. But anyway, there's a survey for everything. And this survey, this was the first one I read, and this came out in 1979. And I had moved up to Burleigh Falls, Ontario, Canada at the time. I was in my 20s. And Trent University, they call it the Harvard of Canada. It's a really wonderful place, and it's there in Peterborough, Ontario. And they had a fabulous bookstore that was in town. And didn't you love it when university towns had university bookstores in the towns the university was in? And I think that's kind of a thing of the past now. You know, they don't want strangers in their bookstores. And I used to go into university bookstores and buy the students' books. I figured he hadn't gotten here already and bought this book. I'm going to buy it. I'm actually going to read it. So don't lock me out of here. But this is great. This is called Utopian Thought in the Western World. And it was written by a husband and wife team, Frank and Fitz Emanuel. And they were Harvard professors, and Harvard Press published this. And this is a survey following the idea of utopian thinking, going all the way back. I mean, it begins with Kronos, castrating his father and throwing his bits into the ocean, and up comes Aphrodite, and we're on a hell of a ride from that moment forward. It was the first book I ever read that took me through the French Enlightenment, and he really goes to town on the French Enlightenment, and he should, because that's when people started trying to get away from the church's rendition of history and time and all that. Start getting into some more fact-based information. And in this book, you're going to meet pansophists, you know, the guys who wanted all knowledge. And there was a philosopher named Comenius, and he believed that all knowledge should be universal, and everything should be taught to everyone. What a radical idea. And so you're going to fall in love with the pansophists. There's Comenius. There's Bruno. Giordano Bruno was, they didn't start using the word science until 1840. So until 1840, if you were scientifically inclined, you were called a natural philosopher. And Bruno was a natural philosopher, and he had done his homework, and he had decided that the Earth goes around the sun, not the other way around. And prismatic light and all this stuff, and the natural philosophers dealt in those things. And it was when alchemists became chemists. And old Bruno, he's going around, and he had a teaching gig in Oxford University, and this is in the late 1500s. And the church kept sending him, Rome kept sending him things like, we hear you're doing all this, and why don't you cut it out? And he thought, well, I'll just go and explain it to the Pope. Well, he went and explained it to the Pope, and the Pope had his tongue nailed to the roof of his mouth, and they stripped him down, they took him outside, and they burned him alive. But if they had not done that, doing that to that guy, that cost us 250 years of civilization, that one burning at the stake. And but you're going to meet Bruno, Campanella, Comenius, Leibniz, Condorcet, Saint Simon, Fourier, Karl Marx. They have Karl Marx in here as a utopianist, a utopian thinker. And, when you read their rendition of it, you think, okay, now I kind of get it. Sure, you want to make a better world, imagine one. And that's it. So utopian thought in the Western world has just been, and every decade or two I have to go online and find an old beat up copy because mine's just been destroyed. All right, we're going to keep moving. Oh, and another great thing, I'm not moving. Another great thing in the utopian thought in the Western world is this chapter they have on the Rosicrucians, the sons and daughters and followers of the Rosy Cross. Now, the Rosy Cross is not a crucifix. It was in the Sagittarian constellation. One time, they noticed a comet that was bifurcating the constellation with a giant crimson trail, and so they called it the Rosy Cross because it crossed through the constellation. And back then, the people would pay close attention to the firmament, to astronomy, and if there was an earthquake, they'd say, well, what was going on in the stars last night, and then they would mark it down, and then the next time that event happened in the celestial world, they would think maybe that thing will reoccur in the physical world. Humankind has been searching for answers for a long time, and it's taken many a setback to get us even here. But So I read that chapter on Rosicrucius to my buddy Al Johnson when we were the Pheromones, and we wrote a song about it called "The Ancient One." And my favorite line that I think I ever wrote was, "The wicked won't obey the laws; the good do not require." So that's my utopian thought in the Western world. There's another survey that takes you through the French Enlightenment, and this is brilliant. Whereas the utopian thoughts are rather esoteric, this is just a great read. I don't care who you are. From dawn to decadence, 500 years of Western cultural life, and it's by Jacques Barzoum, who was an educator and a Shakespeare scholar. And where he got the time to do this, I'll never know. But I don't have something picked out from here to read to you. But it's basically whereas utopian thought tracks utopian thinking, this tracks the arts and how it affected culture, humanity, law, all that kind of stuff. It's just a great read. I'd say take it to the beach, but don't take it to your back deck and spend the summer with Jacques Barzin, and you won't regret it. All right, now for the fun stuff. Now I'm going to show you this book, and I don't want you to get mad. I don't want you to turn me off. I don't want you to run away. Take your hands away from the keyboard. This person pissed off so many people, it's kind of astonishing. But when I was a touring musician, people were sending me books to read all the time because I was 10 hours a day in the van, and 5 hours, 6 hours to get one place to another. America's a big country. And so one day I was literally getting in the van. We were going on a 20-day run. Probably do 28 shows in 20 days. It's a murderous schedule. And so I opened up this package that's been sent to me from my good friend Ron Baker, who was managing a technical bookstore at the time. He's a book fanatic, and he's always worked in bookstores. I haven't heard from him in a while. Anyway, I open up the package, and now I'd never heard of this person. So forgive me, but I was taken by surprise, okay? And I opened the package, and in there was this, Sexual Persona, Art and Decadence from Nefertiti to Emily Dickinson. And I thought, all right, whoa. And so I threw it in the van, off we went. And this whole trip I'm reading this thing. And it's outrageous, and it's astonishing. And I had never seen this author, and no one had ever heard of her. And the whole time I'm reading it, she reminded me of this civics teacher I had in the 9th grade named Mrs. Hurd. I loved Mrs. Hurd. She'd explain anything. You'd go to her house and she'd tell you all about it. She loved politics, society, forms of government. There's nothing she didn't know, and there's nothing she didn't want to share. And she had outrageous ideas too. And then I saw Camille Paglia on TV, and she was as far away from a doting grandma, cookie baking, pie making person that I had imagined, right? As you can imagine, she's an angry lesbian, intellectual, full of piss and vinegar, and she went on to, say outrageous things and take giant speaking fees and all that. And there was one tragedy, though. All through this book, she's telling you about another book she's going to write that is a certain survey that takes you through motion pictures and their mythological impact on culture and arts. And she references it and quotes it all the time in here, but she never finished it. And anyway, but just two quick things from this, and then I'll go burn it or something. Sexual Persona seeks to demonstrate the unity and continuity of Western culture, something that has inspired little belief since the period before World War I. The book accepts the canonical Western tradition and rejects the modernist idea that culture has collapsed into meaningless fragments. I argue that Judeo-Christianity never did defeat paganism, which still flourishes in art, eroticism, astrology, and pop culture. The first volume of Sexual Personae examines antiquity, the Renaissance, and Romanticism from the late 18th century to 1900. I demonstrate that Romanticism turns almost immediately into decadence when I find throughout major 19th century authors, even Emily Dickinson. The second volume will show how movies, television, sports, rock music embody all the pagan themes of classical antiquity. My approach throughout the book combines disciplines, literature, art history, psychology, and religion. What is art? How and why does an artist create? The amorality, aggression, sadism, voyeurism, and pornography in great art have been ignored or glossed over by most academic critics. I fill in the space between artist and artwork with metaphors drawn from Cambridge School of Anthropology. My largest ambition is to fuse Fraser with Freud. All right, now that's laying it out there. And man, oh man, she has some political opinions that drove people out of their minds. But this is a tremendously challenging and wonderful read. And I've plucked one little thing, if I marked it right, where she compares Lord Byron to Elvis Presley. Here we go. Lord Byron and Elvis Presley. You know, I hadn't put those two together. Maybe you hadn't either. All right. Byron had pure charisma, a power of personality divorced from the conceptual or moral. Charisma is electromagnetism, a scintillating fusion of masculine and feminine. Lady Blessington said Byron's voice and accent are peculiarly agreeable but effeminate. His friend Moore saw a feminine cast of character and his caprices, fits of weeping, sudden affections and dislikes. Byron belongs to the category of androgen I invented for Michelangelo's Giuliano de' Medici, Epicene, or the man of beauty, an athlete of alabaster skin. Jane Porter found Byron's complexion softly brilliant, with a moonlight paleness. Lady Blessington called his face peculiarly pale, set off by curling hair of very dark brown. He used a good deal of oil in it, which makes it look still darker. White skin, dark oiled hair. Elvis Presley, in homage to singer Roy Orbison, Presley dyed his brown blonde hair black and continued to do so to the end, despite friends urging to let the natural color return. Presley, a mythmaker, understood the essence of his archetypal beauty. Byron and Elvis Presley look alike, especially in strong-nosed Greek profile. In Glenavon, a Roman clef about her affair with Byron, Caroline Lamb says of her heroine's first glimpse of him, the proud curl of his upper lip expressed haughtiness and bitter contempt. Presley's sneer was so emblematic that he joked about it. In a 1968 television special, he twitched his mouth and murmured to the audience's laughter, I've got something on my lip." The romantic curling lip is aristocratic disdain. Presley is still called the king, testimony to his ritual needs, and a democratic populace. Testimony to the ritual needs of a democratic populace. As revolutionary sexual persona, Byron and Presley had early and late styles, brooding menace and urbane magnanimity. Their everyday manners were manly and gentle. Presley had a captivating soft-spoken charm. The Byronic hero, says Peter Thorslev, is invariably courteous toward women. Byron and Presley were world shapers, conduits of titanic force, yet they were deeply emotional and sentimental in a feminine sense. Both had late Orientalizing periods. Byron, drawn to Oriental themes, went off to fight the Turks in the Greek War of Independence and died of a mysterious illness in Missolonghi. A portrait shows him in silk turban and embroidered Albanian dress. The costume style of Presley's last decade was nearly Mithraic, jewel-encrusted silk jumpsuits, huge studded belts, rings, chains, sashes, and scarves. This resembles Napoleon's late phase, as in Ingres's portrait of the emperor enthroned in Byzantine splendor, weighed down in velvet ermine and jewels. Napoleon, Byron, and Presley began in simplicity as flaming assertions of youthful male will, and all three ended as ornate objects to cult. British legend envisions a westering of culture, Troy to Rome to London. But there is also an eastering of culture. We are far from our historical roots in Mesopotamia and Asia Minor. Yet again and again, collective emotions swelling about a charismatic European personality instinctively returns him or her to the east. Elizabeth I also ended as a glittering Byzantine icon. Now, come on. That didn't keep your attention. You're not paying attention. Sexual persona, Camille Paglia. What a piece of work. All right. I got one more for you. What time is it? It's getting late. All right. This book is a survey, and it's probably the most enjoyable nonfiction book I've read in 10 years. And it's called The Age of Wonder. And it's about, what's it say? How the romantic generation discovered the beauty and terror of science. And you meet so many great characters in here, it's kind of astonishing. It's basically the 19th century, which begins with the Pope and the church saying, allowing vivisections. Now, vivisections. Taking a corpse apart to see what was wrong with it. That was outlawed. You weren't allowed to defile corpses for thousands of years. It was a religious thing. And but when they allowed that, sure they were able to use it for medicinal stuff, but they also believed in this thing called vitalism. And vitalism, they thought there might be an animating organ in the body that houses the soul and gives off some kind of vitalism juice that makes you alive. And they all went digging into these corpses looking for that organ. And but the notion of vitalism and spirit, native peoples would say that you observe the child running around, and when he exudes, when he shows you his spirit, then you can name it or her. Because first they've got to demonstrate who they are. Fantastic. All right. So in here you're going to have that. Here's a guy who invents laughing gas. He invents laughing gas and he takes it to all his pals. They're all intellectuals and natural philosophers and stuff. And he gives them all laughing gas, and they all just get stoned all the time and laugh their ass off. But they didn't realize that it was also an anesthetic. And there's a letter in here from a woman who had her breast cancer removed about them scraping it off her rib cage and without an anesthetic. And they had already invented laughing gas. They could have given it to him. Anyway, who's out here today? We got Peabody. Is he in the building? Oh my God, there he is. Boy, good to see you. Serena, yeah. There's Rosa. Lorena, there she is. Oh my God. Eileen, there you are. All right. Who else? Well, my buddy's Randy Stannard. Dry as dust. You got that. All right. James Luke, always present and accounted for. Richard and Lucy out there. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I told you about the laughing gas and all the stuff that's in this book, but the best chapter I've read on anything in a long time is the one on balloonists. Now, these guys were paper makers at first, and they discovered that they could take a big piece of paper and fill it up with hot air, and it might float around the room. Well, they go, well, we can make one, put people in it and float them out. So they figured out how to get hot air into a paper bag and tie a basket underneath it and get in the thing and light the fire. And the first 100 of them took off and didn't come down without killing everybody. And they didn't. One thing they didn't think about was does it going to need to be steered, and does it need how are you going to get back down? And so they're floating across the channel. They're bumping into cathedral towers, and it's insane. But they solved the problem, and there was a guy named Dr. Alexander Charles who made the first ascent in a true hydrogen balloon. Now, Charles pioneered a number of technical breakthroughs. They included an elongated wicker work basket safely suspended on ropes beneath the canopy, and an impermeable balloon, skin made of silk coated in rubber and enclosed in netting, a controllable gas valve at the top of the balloon for venting, and, most important of all, a finely tuned system of ballast bags filled with sand, which could be jettisoned by the kilo or by the gram, precisely as required by the aeronaut. Dr. Charles had, in effect, invented nearly all the features of the modern gas balloon in a single brilliant design. He launched from the Tuileries Gardens in Paris on the 1st of December, 1783, with a scientific assistant, Mr. Robert. They attracted what has been estimated as the biggest crowd in pre-revolutionary France. Pre-revolutionary Paris, upwards of 400,000 people came out to watch this balloon go up in the air. About half the total population of the city. It was a glorious pink and yellow candy-colored balloon, 30 feet tall and 50 feet around. The crowd loved it. The wicker work basket, a sort of chaise lounge for two, was completely festooned with flags and bunting. Dr. Charles had a full payload of scientific equipment aboard. Mercury barometer, which was used as an early form of altimeter, thermometer, telescope, sandbags, and several bottles of champagne. I want one right now. In a nice gesture, he handed the release cord to Joseph Montgolfier. Monseigneur Montgolfier, it is now for you to show us the way to the skies. Dr. Charles later recalled his feelings as the balloon lifted above the trees of the Tuileries and across the Seine. Nothing will ever quite equal that moment of total hilarity that filled my whole body at the moment of takeoff. I felt we were flying away from the earth and all its troubles forever. It was not mere delight. It was a sort of physical ecstasy. My companion, Monsieur Robert, murmured to me, I'm finished with the earth. From now on, it's the sky for me. Such utter calm, such immensity. Benjamin Franklin, American ambassador in Paris, watched the launch through a telescope from his window, or the window of his carriage. Afterwards, he remarked, someone asked me what use of a balloon, and I replied, what use is a newborn baby? Wouldn't you love to have met him? 2 hours later, they landed 27 miles away at Nesle, skimming across the field and chased by a group of farm workers, like children chasing a butterfly. Once the balloon was secured, in a moment of euphoria, Dr. Charles asked Monsieur Robert, to step out of the basket, released of his weight, and with Charles alone aboard, the balloon rapidly relaunched and climbed into the sunset, reaching the astonishing height of 10,000 feet in a mere 10 minutes, 1,000 feet per minute. A truly formidable and terrifying ascent. Dr. Charles kept calmly observing his instruments and making notes until his hand was too cold to grasp his pen. I was the first man ever to see the sun set twice in the same day. The cold was intense and dry, but supportable. I had acute pain in my right ear and jaw. But I examined all my sensations calmly. I could hear myself living, so to speak. He began gently to release the hydrogen gas valve. Within 35 minutes, he was safely back on terra firma, a term that took on new meaning, alighting a mere 3 miles from his first landing point. His ascent had been almost vertical. It was the first solo flight in history. Never has a man felt so solitary or so sublime and so utterly terrified. And Dr. Charles never flew again. I don't know about you, but I just think that's fabulous. There's a wonderful painting in here. Maybe I can find it real quick before I say goodbye. Because I would love a print of this. Okay, maybe I can hold it up for you. Somebody did a painting of the balloon taking off. Isn't that gorgeous? All right. So that's my survey says program for the day. Hope you enjoyed it. Stay out of those balloons. You know, when I used to, we used to go out on the road a lot, like I tell you all the time. And when we were heading northwest from Washington, D.C., our route would take us up Route 270 past Frederick and Highway 15. And at 7 a.m. on a Saturday or Sunday morning, when the weather is perfect, spring, summer, fall, there was a balloon group that would meet out there, and we'd come up over a rise, and there might be 30 hot air balloons or helium balloons lifting gently up off. They'd be all out in the sky. It was just wonderful. You'd see them for miles and miles. I was like, that is so damn cool. And I'm a little acrophobic, and I'm never getting in one of those things to save my life, save my bacon. Hey, thanks for seeing. We got a surprise for you coming on Wednesday. Rose reads, and Rose is still on sabbatical, but Linda Watanabe McFerrin, an ASP author, who's got this great book out called Navigating the Divide. It's a terrific read. I should have brought one to hold up for you. She's going to take Rose's slot this Wednesday, and you don't want to miss her. She's a dynamic reader. She's a real special person, a real piece of work, and she's brave and bold, and she's always got something unexpected on her mind. So don't forget to check in with Linda, and I'm going to say so long for now, and I'll be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we're going to see you next time. Bye for now.